these are the films I watched this month, August 2024. So starting off the month, I watched the Beatles documentary by Ron Howard, 8 Days a Week, which focuses on their touring years in America mainly. And this movie wasn't very revelatory to me. I knew almost all of the details, so I really didn't enjoy this one too much. But I'm sure if you didn't know as much about the Beatles, you'd have a fun time with this and learn some new things. But yeah, not the most interesting for me personally. Then we have another Beatles movie. This is The Beatles Let It Be. This was the remastered version on Disney Plus. This is actually the third time I've seen this. It's a lot like a music video, to be honest. There's not a ton of dialogue. It's very different than the Get Back series, which is about 8 hours. This is only about an hour and 20 minutes or so. But it's grown on me. It's just a ton of fun, to be honest. It misses so much of the context, but I just enjoy it in its own right, to be honest. Then we have Johnny English Strikes Again, the third Johnny English film. This is, although I only gave it 2.5 stars, I still have fun with it. It's still a pretty fun film. It's definitely the worst of the Johnny English series, but it's not bad, really, by any metric. It's fun. It's a Johnny English film. Then we have The Lion King, the original, and this is great. I mean, one of the best 2D animated films, at least of that Disney 2D revival era. Just a timeless story, simple story, but the musical numbers are great. It's just, yeah, great to watch this with family. Then we have Rebel Without a Cause. I really enjoyed this movie. It felt very progressive for 1955. It focused on issues with families and parents and the youth culture at the time, I guess. Yeah, this was a really, I think, revelatory film. I mean, because this came out in 1955. So it really surprised me. I didn't expect it to be what it was. I definitely recommend to see this. Then I watched the documentary about the making of it, which is very revelatory. It's got a lot of amazing stories about the making of this film, so I definitely recommend that if you watch the movie. Then I rewatched The Big Short, which kind of disappointed me. I watched it a few years ago, and I remember liking it, but rewatching this, stylistically, it was very confused about what it was, I think. I did not enjoy the way the movie or the story was executed. It really tried to be The Wolf of Wall Street, and I just don't think it got anywhere close to that movie. It's not terrible. Like, it's an enjoyable watch. The performances are pretty much all around fun performances from all those big actors you see on the poster. But yeah, it's nothing crazy, nothing. It's it's kind of just a worse version of Wolf of Wall Street. Obviously, it's a fairly different story, but it focuses on the whole, Wall Street side of things. Yeah, it's not as intellectual as it thinks it is. Then I watched Contact, which again was a different film than what I thought it would be. I really enjoyed the questions brought up by it about religion versus science, and I really enjoyed the characters. They were interesting characters, interesting concepts. The film overall, though, was a bit underwhelming. It takes a long time to go anywhere with so you kind of expect the ending to be this big kind of thing. And I guess it is in a way, but it also is a bit underwhelming. But I did overall have a good time with this movie. Then I rewatched How to Train Your Dragon, which is one of the best 3D animated one of the best animated films, hands down, I think. Yes, just a amazing film. And what more can I say? If you haven't seen this, it's just so much fun. Whether you're an adult or a kid or whatever, this is a good film. Then I watched Robert Zemeckis' first film, which I hadn't really known about at all until more recently. I had no idea that his first film was about these crazed Beatles fans trying to meet the Beatles. And it was quite fun. It was really a lot of fun, and the whole concept was entertaining. The characters can be a little annoying. Some of the characters are quite annoying, but I guess that's the whole point. To be fair, it's kind of the point. So yeah, I had quite a lot of fun with this one. Then I watched The Prince of Egypt, and this was really good. This is one of DreamWorks' earliest films. I think it's their second earliest film, and it's, yeah, amazing. They spent, I think, 4 years on this. The animation is beautiful. You got a great voice cast. You got Val Kilmer and Jeff Goldblum, and I'm forgetting so many others, but there's just a stacked voice cast, and so beautiful performances and beautiful animation. And the story, of course, it's about Moses. But you don't have to be religious to enjoy this. It's just a timeless story that has been adapted in many modern works. You'll see the parallels there, so it's cool to see the original story being portrayed in this modern animation format. So it's, yeah, definitely recommend this movie. Then I watched the making of documentary of that movie. Then I watched the original True Grit from 1969 with John Wayne. And this movie, it took a while for me to really care about the whole situation and setup and characters. And it wasn't really until the end of the movie that I'd kind of realised how much these characters had grown on me. So I think it's definitely one I need to rewatch, because for a lot of the film, I wasn't really that invested or wasn't really enjoying it. But I think now, on a rewatch, I'd probably enjoy it more. But overall, I did think by the end of it that it was a pretty good film. Then I watched the Coen brothers remake of True Grit. And this, I gave it the same rating. I enjoyed both versions. I think I'd have to rewatch them, but I think I would lean towards preferring the original version. But this movie did have a lot of good stuff. I think Haley Steinfeld as Maddie was great. That was a great casting choice. But I think Matt Damon and Jeff Bridges don't do that great of a job, to be honest. I love Jeff Bridges, but I really missed John Wayne's performance. It had a lot of borrowed lines from the original, actually, which was fine. It was cool to pick up on that, especially since I'd seen the original 2 nights before. But a bit of a mixed bag here, I think. I think I'd have to rewatch both of these to really fully realise how I feel about these films. But overall, definitely an interesting and engaging story. Then I watched the Oasis documentary, Supersonic. And I'm not that huge of an Oasis fan, or didn't really know too much about them, I guess. But so this was definitely revelatory, unlike the Beatles documentary I'd watched. But I mean, I'm sure if you're a super Oasis fan, maybe you knew all this stuff already. So, but I definitely enjoyed this for what it was. Yeah, great archival footage. Some really stunning footage. There's a lot of, crappy, low-resolution footage in there, but there's a lot of great 35mm concert footage that looks spectacular. So if you're at all interested in their music or their story, I'd definitely check this one out. And then I watched Aliens, James Cameron's sequel to Ridley Scott's amazing film Alien. And I watched this in preparation to see the new Alien, Alien Romulus. And I'd seen the first Alien a few months ago. I didn't love this one, to be completely honest. I think the genre change, because of course the original Alien was through and through a horror film, right? This space horror film. And Aliens kind of really flipped the genre. It's Aliens is way more of just a kind of action film. Of course, you got the space marines and whatnot, and it's much more of a 80s action film. There were, of course, elements that were great here, and I've always heard how this is, a great sequel, and I do not agree that it surpasses the original Alien at all. I liked this film for what it was, but the genre change really just caught me off guard, and I did watch the special edition, which was about half an hour longer. But from what I'd read, that was the better version. Again, I'd have to rewatch this one, but as it was, I didn't love it. So, but then I watched the new Alien Romulus, and I really enjoyed this film. It definitely has a lot of similarities to the first Alien, but I think character-wise, concept-wise, it just really worked for me, at least seeing it in the theatre. Of course, on a rewatch, I might feel differently, but again, for what this movie was, I really enjoyed it. The first act was a nice, slower introduction to the characters, and while I don't think the characters were particularly engaging, at least the supporting characters, I think the main characters, Rain and Andy, were great. They were really compelling. The stories there were great, but the supporting characters, again, didn't really hear about them. But the second and third acts kind of devolve a little into some questionable choices. The biggest problem I have with this is the whole self-referential to the franchise. For example, it has iconic lines reused by the characters, which just kind of draws you out from the experience. When it's referencing other movies in the franchise, you just kind of cringe a little. That was just how I took that. But overall, this was definitely a fun film. And a good return to practical creature effects. Then I watched Apocalypse Now, and this was the first time I'd seen it, and it's taken me a long time to get around to it, I guess. Of course, this is one of the most famous movies ever made, and it was really encapsulating. I was just, from the first scene, I was really drawn into it. Just filmmaking wise, I was like, yeah, wow, It's definitely a slower burn, I guess. I watched the final cut. Don't know the differences really, but I think that's the second longest cut. I think Redux is a longer cut slightly. But yeah, I know I really loved the film. Again, it's one of those films where I feel like I'd have to rewatch it to fully grasp all the meanings, I'd probably have to watch it 5 more times to grasp all the meanings, but to really get a grip on what exactly this film made me feel, I would probably have to watch it again. So my rating might go up to 5 stars, it might go down to 4 stars, but on the first watch, yeah, 4.5 stars. Really, really good film. Then I watched Coraline for the first time. I didn't see this in theatres for the 15th anniversary, although it has just been in theatres. I'd never seen this before. I'd heard about it over the years, kind of people saying it was a bit creepy and whatever, so I guess I never got around to it or watched it with my family, but I did watch this with my family, and we all really enjoyed it. The The animation, the stop motion animation is beautiful, just amazing. The story kind of caught me off guard. It was much darker than I expected for a kids movie, and it is a kids movie, but it has so many horror tones and just more adult tones. But I really love the overall story and messaging of the film. I only gave it a 3.5. On rewatches, that might go up because I think again the concept of it caught me off guard. So I really would need to rewatch this. But yeah, really really great film, and the animation just amazing. Then I watched Prometheus, the first of the Alien prequels. And this was directed by Ridley Scott, the original director of the first Alien. But this film kind of lost me. I only gave it 2 stars. I really wanted to like it, and I was enjoying it for what it was in the beginning, in the first act, mostly. But it just really kind of derailed itself, and the script was pretty bad. I didn't care about any of the characters other than maybe David. And David's character arc is the most interesting thing about this film. Hands down the most interesting thing. Of course, the film raises a lot of philosophical questions and theological questions even, but it kind of doesn't go anywhere with those by the end. It doesn't answer any of them. And of course, there's a sequel to this, Alien Covenant, which I watched last night, which isn't going to be part of this review because that was the 1st of September, but again, I feel like some of those threads are still not answered. So yeah, I did not enjoy this movie too much. Then I watched Alien 3, the sequel to Aliens, and this movie has gotten a terrible rap. I mean, just a terrible rap. I've heard awful things about it, so I was almost just considering not even watching this movie. But I popped in the Blu-ray. I watched the assembly cut version, not the theatrical cut, because I'd read that the assembly cut makes the film better. So I was like, okay, gonna watch the assembly cut. And maybe it's just because of my expectations, but I was really, really surprised by this movie in the sense that it was far better than I thought it would be. I'd heard awful things regarding the way it, spoilers, kills off some of the characters from the previous movie in like the opening scene. I didn't really have a problem with it. I get that it kind of undermines the ending of the previous film, and maybe it's just because I didn't really care too much about the previous film that I didn't have a problem with this. But I think that bold choice to do that and make these, the movie makes bold decisions throughout the runtime. And I think that just made me respect it more. I really respected this film. And I know that the production of this film was hell, and that the director, David Fincher, who's obviously gone on to direct amazing films, like The Social Network, which is one of my favourite movies, he wants nothing to do with this movie. He hates this movie. And, the studio had all this meddling in the production. But for what it was, I thought this movie really took those big risks, but I think a lot of them paid off. The third act does drag on a little bit longer than it needs to. Maybe it's shorter in the theatrical version. I'm not sure. But, yeah, for what it is, I think this is a perfectly good final movie. And the original Alien trilogy, of course, there's Alien Resurrections, which I haven't seen, but I'll get to it. I've heard bad things, but again, I heard bad things about Alien 3, so I think I will give it a chance. And to wrap up the month of August, I watched Jurassic Park. Obviously seen this plenty of times before. Just a great movie. I'd already seen it back in January, but had a family movie night and we decided to rewatch Jurassic Park. Not too much I can say about it, really. One of Steven Spielberg's best films. It's up there with Jaws and E.T. and Raiders of the Lost Ark. So, yeah, it's a great movie. Revolutionary for CGI, and yes, absolutely the best of the franchise by far. It's the only great Jurassic Park movie, I think, is a fair assessment. But there you go. Those are the movies I watched in August of 2024.